Major changes to infrastructure in Paris appear to be yielding major air quality improvements. Air Paris, an independent group that tracks air quality in Paris, says harmful pollutants in Paris have been cut in half since 2005. Now, over the years, Paris has implemented a series of changes to improve air quality. Among them, the city closed hundreds of streets to cars and eliminated thousands of parking spots to make room for pedestrians and bicycles. Well, the results have been remarkable. Air Paris says premature deaths linked to air pollution fell by a third between 2010 and 2019. And from 2023 to 24, a stunning 84% fewer people have been exposed to air pollution above regulatory limits. Joining us now to discuss this is Vincent Thorne. He's a researcher with the Paris School of Economics. Thank you so much for being here with us. A fascinating case study here. So I understand you moved to Paris fairly recently. So before we get into all the numbers, just from a feel point of view, you've described the feeling now of riding your bike around Paris, of eating outside these days. What's it like since these changes were implemented?
Yeah, thanks, Kim. So the first change I would say is really lots of road work. So every couple of months, there's a new street being fitted with a new bike lane or a new intersection being remodeled. So first, there's a little bit this disruption feeling, but very fast after the remodeling is done, there's really a feeling of like increased safety as a cyclist. And there's a big shift also on how cyclists are perceived by others. There's really this feeling of like, you're not an intruder now anymore in a car-dominated environment. You're really felt like cyclists are welcome and expected. So that's very important on the psychological sides, especially for folks who historically haven't cycled that much. So yeah, it's really great to see people gradually taking over the infrastructure. There's really like an increasingly diverse population riding bikes, and that's really a sign that the policy is working if it's able to attract new cyclists, aside from the athletic and brave types. So yeah, it's been really enjoyable having less traffic in Paris.
So you're describing a huge kind of realignment in terms of the society there. So let's talk about the effect all of this has. I discussed this earlier. Air pollution has dropped by about 50% over the last 20 years, but it has to be said, many other cities have seen drops in air pollution too. Here, for instance, in the US, air pollution from vehicles has decreased dramatically because cars have become better rather than fewer. So in Paris, much of this pollution drop, do we know how much of that can be attributed to these new bike-friendly policies?
So of course, all these policies come as a bundle. So it's always very difficult to precisely pin down what every policy in particular has as an effect on air pollution. So I would say it's important for cities to implement these policies as a bundle. On the other side, in New York City, in my research, I find direct effects of bike share improvements on air pollution concentration. So here I'm able to pin down the effect of a reduction in air pollution concentrations. I would say in Paris, it's a bit harder. There's like not exactly the same data, but it's pretty clear that these policies have had a tremendous effect. And I think most of the effect comes from probably taking space away from cars, so making car not as good a mode of transport as before.
Let's talk about the concrete effect then for Parisians. Air pollution, as you know, often called the silent killer. So how important and how quickly do you think can residents notice health benefits from this improved air quality?
So this can be very fast. Local air pollution, as you said, is directly felt by residents. It severely impacts especially people with chronic respiratory diseases. So they will be the first ones to notice that there are fewer higher peaks of air pollution, and this will drastically improve their life. Just like to give a couple of numbers, it's expected that about 200,000 people die every year of excessive air pollution in the US alone, and this has massive economic effects also on cognitive performance, on productivity and decision-making abilities. So these effects are going to be felt directly on the economy because these people are going to be able to be much more productive right away.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, Paris has closed and will close hundreds of streets to cars and remove tens of thousands of parking spots. So you wonder, what effect that might have on businesses, and the ramifications of this sort of make me think, not every city will be able to replicate what Paris has done. You need, as you sort of talked about earlier, a culture of biking. You need great public transport, so many other things there. But what do you think other cities can take from this Paris experience?
Yeah, so just a little bit on local businesses. I think, on average, local businesses are initially very reluctant to see their street become car-free. And this is a good, like Barcelona, where I'm in today, is actually a very good example of this, where they pedestrianized a 3.5 kilometer street in the CBD. And during the planning and construction phase, there was a lot of complaints from businesses, which culminated into a court case. And what is funny is that 6 months after the pedestrian street was completed, these business owners decided to drop the case. So I think this is a very clear point that slowing down people increases footfall. People are more likely to stop by your shop or spend much more time on your terrace if you're a restaurant. So I think for local businesses, there's a little bit of this readjustment that is needed. And I think, as you said, different policies are going to work in different places. I think the arsenal of policies for reducing traffic is the same across the world. So you got, for example, what was implemented in New York City, the congestion charge, which is for economists the most efficient way of dealing with traffic. And this has had very positive impacts, has been measured, for example, in London. And so this is a great policy to implement. But as you said, so I think it's a comprehensive package that cities need to implement with a bike infrastructure plan, maybe also subsidizes to convert your car or give away your car in exchange for a bike and this kind of things. I think these are very effective and can be implemented in many cities around the world.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating case study. As I say, Vincent Thorne, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim.
And we'll be right back.